is currently being dominated with lessons of false power, the last gasp of an obsolete system of power. We're witnessing the destruction of a system that never worked right in the first place. And its excesses have become so delusional, so twisted, that the main drama playing out on the karmic theater screen of collective consciousness is the end of false power. And as I said, the key to working with this is that things can't end by quietly diminishing off in some corner, off to the side somewhere. They have to flare up, as life forms tend to do when their life is threatened. They tend to flare up into the most exaggerated version of their delusion. And that's what's happening all over the world. The most exaggerated version of delusional power is flaring up across the world stage of collective consciousness. It's up. That's what I mean by coming up. This is not going to diminish. This is not going to go gently into the good night. This is going to become even more accentuated and more pronounced as Jupiter heads during the next year towards its rendezvous with Saturn in the great winter solstice conjunction of 2020. So that means that we can't expect the current abuses of power, the current bizarre situation where politicians are outright lying over and over, and when caught red-faced in their lies, when caught with a clear documentation of the of their lies, are still insisting that the lies are true. This is a relatively new situation in American politics, in US politics, because even though politicians have always lied since way back before Shakespeare, in fact, one of Shakespeare's main themes was the lying of politicians. But even though politicians have always lied, the thing that's different now is that when caught bold-faced in their lies, they're not even bothering to to cover them up. I don't know about you, but I find that as a direct insult to our species' intelligence. Politicians are boldly, brashly parading about saying the truth doesn't matter, nobody's interested in the truth, I'm going to keep telling my lies, and I dare any of you to stop me. That's the new iteration of the age-old problem of lying politicians. It's reached a new morphogenesis. We have become advanced in the art of delusion. The delusion is getting more and more virulent. And with all these planets in Capricorn, which is the sign of government, earth changes, new evolution, earth magic, the evolution of the species that has to do with right leadership, power, and the transformation of false power. So you might say it's all on schedule. The politicians around the world, and especially in my country, that are caught in the delusional suicidal disease of false power are not likely to wake up and break out of it barring a true uprising of the collective consciousness of the people. Nothing less than a revolution is going to uproot the scions of false power from their delusional pedestals that they're preaching upon. They're not going to be reasoned into a better way, because the corrupt system that they worship has sunk its tendrils much too deeply, like a cancer in a human body, for it to be removed with any less radical means. So we really have to gird ourselves for the long haul here. For instance, in the idea that in the United States, once we get rid of Trump, everything will be back to normal again and much better, is only somewhat true. It's largely a fiction. There's a much deeper root of false power in our world, in our species, in our consciousness, and in my country than Trump. And that deeper root is what we have to get to. We have to create a form of power that's based more on truth than delusion. And that's not an easy task, because the system of false power has persisted for centuries, though it's gotten much worse recently. And it sinks its tendrils into each of us, so that no one is completely removed from the great transformation of false power of our time. We're all summoned. We are all invited in to the true magic of Capricorn. And the true magic of Capricorn is the magic of the wine press. The wine press of the gods is squeezing our ego, our impurities, our delusions, our self-deceptions out of us to produce the deep sweetness of awakening to this magical, multidimensional nature that you inhabit. Every one of you is a magical, multidimensional being having an earthly experience. And the earthly experience requires mitigating your magic multidimensionality, suppressing some of your magical full-dimensional nature, your cosmic nature, in order to get the things of life moving, in order to show up as a human being in relationship, in society, in the world as is. But the experience of being human doesn't require you to completely forget that you're this limitless, magical, multidimensional, mystically alive being who's choosing to have a physical experience, but need not be completely taken over by it and fooled by it and drawn into its delusion. Once you wake up to realize that your nature is as free as the cosmos, that your consciousness runs deep and wide, then the delusions of our time, the delusions of false power, the rampant corruption of the Democrats, the rampant corruption of the Republicans, the rampant corruption of a hyper-polarized world that benefits from the polarization worming its way into your own basic inner nature. Once you wake up to that delusional limitation, to remember that you come from the land of love and truth, and that it is your duty, to put it in Capricornian terms, it is your duty to honor the love and truth that you're made of and not let anyone talk you out of it, regardless of what lunacy is spreading through the halls of power. This is the part of Capricorn that has to do with making a vow to be true to your magical vision of how strong and beautiful life can be. You have to make a vow to uphold the strong and beautiful life that you were born to live. That's a revolution of one. That revolution is capable of being waged inside your own nature between you and yourself. When you wage the revolution of breaking out of the invisible psychic chains that hold you back from being this enormous, towering force of love and truth, then the world's delusions of false power begin to release their hold over you. The stories that result from false power, the fictitious stories of our time that have no truth, no substance in them, lose their hold over you, and you wean yourself from being held back in a distorted state, and you free the power of allowing everything that's pressuring you to grow you, to transform you, to evolve you, rather than to silence you, muzzle you, cow you, and diminish you. That is the gift of Capricorn. The nature of Capricorn is to wrestle with everything wrong in order to create something right. Capricorn is a tough sign. It's a resilient sign. It is a wise sign. Capricorn knows that you and I are so much more than we appear to be. Capricorn knows that we're giants of spirit, reduced to playing minimal roles of human beings on the world stage. And in that role playing, when you let the severest challenges and the harshest conditions make you stronger and more loving and more wise, you gain the Capricornian power of becoming a regenerator of the human condition. You create a new earth inside yourself. The revolution of one creates a new earth when you let everything that's wrong and pressurized and pushing in on you catalyze a deep love, truth, magic response from your soul. That's the initiation of our time. It's the solo initiation of one that is not dependent on Donald Trump waking up and having a revelation that he needs to free the Mexican children from their cages. It's not dependent on anybody else anywhere in the halls of power having a revelation. It's the revolution of one that you are here to follow the magical truth of your being, no matter what, and not let anybody stop you, and use your time here to be true to the power that's been given to you by Cosmos to fulfill your creative journey between birth and death. Each of us has been given a power by Cosmos, by Spirit, to fulfill the creative journey we signed up for between birth and death. That's the only power you have. You have no other power than that. But that power is enough, because when you make good on your creative journey through this world, you set a lot of forces in motion that compel others to do the same. You create an example that there's a liberated way to deal with society and family and relationship and politics and media. There's a way that everything pressing on you conjures your awakening more than your hypnosis. That's the Capricornian rite of passage. When everything pressing in on you conjures more of your awakening than hypnosis by the system, you undergo the Capricorn rite of passage into the next version of your awareness. Like a laser beam, your third eye ignites and sends its view up and over everything caught in turmoil and delusion in the karmic theater. You see through it with a laser beam of compassionate penetration. The mirage of the limited life dissolves in the heat of that ruby fired laser beam that bursts out of your third eye. And the paradox of the Capricornian rite of passage from false power into true power is that it rarely happens until you're desperate enough, until you're forced enough, until it seems as if the world's situation is so impossible, so ruinous, so unbeatable that the light in you switches on. Because at that point, it's just a matter of why not? If the world is going to hell, I might as well switch on my inner light. I might as well be real with the final days of the species than false. I might as well create the cure more than the disease. Okay, Marcella, do we want to open up the technology to see if anybody has questions? Especially Capricorns, which we always give the first invitation to Capricorns when I'm talking about a certain sign to step in.
Yeah, so for anyone that's on the call that would like to comment or ask a question, especially those of you born under the sign of Capricorn, you can either be so daring and have an inner revolution and just unsilence yourself, or if you need my help, you can raise your hand and I can make sure you can speak. And then also if you're calling in by phone, I noticed we have several people calling in by phone. I think you actually have to raise your hand or press *6 on your telephone to speak.
It looked like Mary Beth raised her hand. Did you see that?
Hold on, I have to switch. Ah, I see. Okay. So you're unmuted, Mary Beth.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So I have Capricorn Rising. It's my only earth sign. But so I'm wondering, what does that look like in relation to what you're saying, being, Capricorn Rising on my first house?
It looks like that your basic nature is strongly tinted by Capricorn. And so the issues of power issues of the patriarchy, issues of the father-daughter bond, the use of authority, are in your field, they're in your space. They're not necessarily deeply entangled in your soul when it's your rising sign, but there's something that your soul signed up to deal with. It's time to get really clear and be the authority that you are. You know, where is the loving authority? Where's the compassionate authority? But where's the firm authority? Where's the true power? We can't be afraid to use true power. Not all power corrupts. Not all power is corrupt. It's just that it's taking our species a long time to discover the versions of it that aren't. And that's one of the things that you're being asked to do just by the normal course of your life, which is the rising signs providence.
So is it different than the concept and the continued exercise of stepping into my own power?
No, it's the same.
Same thing.
Yeah, especially with the rising sun. Stepping in over and over again, stepping into the river of power and finding out what it is, getting wet, starting to drown, not getting wet enough, you know, just keep stepping in.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, it is exhausting. We are living through apocalyptic times, and they are straining the soul of the species to wake up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary Beth. Anybody else have a question? Once again, I know the Facebook folks, I can't see your question, so I guess I shouldn't say anybody else have a question. I should say some people have a question.
I can try to go pop over to the Facebook part if you can unmute people if they raise their hand. Can you?
Yeah, if I see people raise their hand, I can unmute them. Otherwise, I'll just have to keep talking.
Okay, so really this is your chance because he's really good at talking. So if you want to add something in or have influence and use your power in this moment to create a collective revolution, then you have the power to do so. But I'm also going to see if there's a revolution happening over here on Facebook, and I'll be right back.
Well, I'm not going to stand for it. Anybody, if you guys want to speak, you're going to have to go to some other astrologer because you're not going to get away with that crap. I mean, speaking, that's radical. I'm not going to go away. I'm not going to just tuck myself into a corner and stop speaking in order to let you speak.
I think Lily's up for the challenge. I saw her hands start to move up. So I'm.
We have a challenger. Okay, let's see what the challenger has.
Go, Lily, go.
So this past week, I've been looking at this old family relationship. And my family really wanted me to be somebody else. They really wanted me to just put on the high heels and march off to IBM or get, multiple academic degrees and make lots of money. And that would, then I could afford to belong to my family. And, and I'm just so, at this point in my life, so proud of myself for staying with my art, and following my heart and staying with what I knew to be true and the way I raised my kids and the way I lived my life in spite of just being heckled on the sidelines constantly to change into somebody else, that I stayed with my path, even though it was just, assaulted. And I realized that in doing that, for my part, I'm shifting that much of the culture, because our culture is that way too, there's just not really a lot of room for artists in our culture, so.
Yes. Yeah, there's a collective side to the personal challenge to depart from false power and find out authentic power, magical power, power of love, power of truth, power of creativity, power of art, which changed the world in the 1960s and many other times. So your breakaway from the family that you had to earn enough money in order to be a part of is the lesson that there's a way of gaining acceptance and belonging to the family of humankind that that's true to what you believe, that honors your values, and that also rubs off on others. So thank you for bringing that in.
Yeah, I have a couple threads from the Facebook folks if you would like to hear them.
Sure.
So, well, this is just what I could capture so far. So I apologize to all of those comments that happened earlier that I'm not weaving in. But the two that I caught was that Gia was asking, what is truth? And Erica was also talking about just how much the father-daughter patriarchy piece was resonating with her as having a Capricorn moon, and just this whole theme of true power being really resonant, even with that as the moon sign and not the sun sign.
Truth has two channels: eternal truths, the truth of kindness, the truth of love, the truth of caring. And then it has the relative truths where in one period of your life, it was truthful for you to remain in a certain situation that might have become untruthful for you to remain in later. So there's the eternal truths, the wise truths, the perennial truths, and then there's the temporal truths, the personal truths, the passing truths that may change. And the power is when both of those two channels end up in the same place, when the temporary situation that you're moving through is a reflection of what really matters to you, what's already living in your heart and soul. And so there's a part of truth gaining, truth saying, truth living that has to do with aligning your current path to fit what feels absolutely right to you, your own deepest inner truth. And, you know, it's wrong to abuse children. It's wrong to sexually violate children. That's a truth. That is not right. That is never right. It's difficult for modern consciousness to accept such black and white truths as that, because we've been living in a strange age ever since the atomic bomb. The atomic bomb was so delineating that it's thrown hard truths into questionability ever since. People are afraid to come right out and say, that is wrong. That's wrong, but that's right. The very consciousness of our time instantly goes to, well, maybe that's right for them. And that is sometimes the path of delusion. I mean, this is what these evangelical ministers and priests are saying, that the 3-year-old girl that they fucked wanted him to fuck her. Do you believe that? I mean, the illustration of these things is that sometimes something is just fucking wrong. It never gets to be right. It does not get to be right. And when these bullshit religionist figures come off with their crap that it's sometimes right to sexually violate a child because they enjoyed it, or they asked for it, or they wanted it, or they didn't say it was wrong, that is one of the most twisted, delusional uses of power that has ever existed on the earth, and I do not accept it. Certain things get to be wrong, period. And that means that certain things get to be right, period. And if you're uncertain about what those are, you have to find out. If you have to find out that it's wrong to fuck a 5-year-old, then the method that you're using to find that out is unacceptable. Some things you need to know, you need to find out, and most things aren't quite that black and white and that intense as pedophilia. But it's just an example. If there can be one thing that's just plain always wrong, then there can be some other things. And that leads to, well, then what is right? What is the rightful use of power? You have to find that out for yourself too, but it has to do with being true to your heart, following your heart, staying with your truth, not letting someone talk you out of your truth, standing up for it, living with it, testing it, trying it on for size, seeing what happens, waking up to when you've made a mistake, admitting when you're wrong, owning when you've screwed up, confronting the people that might need to be confronted regarding that, humbling yourself, recognizing you're not always going to use your power in the right way. You might sometimes not. I'm not a perfect human being who only ever uses my power in the absolutely right way. But what distinguishes the true authority of power from the false is the ability to grow and learn from when you yourself have been part of some abuse of power, either the perpetrator or the recipient, as we all are at some time. It's not that the true use of power never fucks up. It's just that it owns up and it goes on and it grows and it learns. Not expecting the only people who use power to always do it right. But God, there is just so much delusional uses of power rippling through the world now that we have to conjure a stronger force of rightful authority, right relationship, right power, right sex, right relationship, right politics. And one of the most bizarre situations of our time is that when somebody actually does come along on the level of national power, national politics, talking the truth, that person seems delusional. And this is the whole paradox. It's that when you're living in a twisted time, anybody who comes along and addresses that on a large scale that's untwisted gets seen as the twisted one. When the one who is not delusional addresses the delusion sees that person as delusional instead of seeing themselves as delusional. And that's what we have to go through. And it takes a lot to stand up to that and not get fooled by it. Any final questions? Oh, there was that one about the father-daughter. And what did you say about that person? There was something a little more specific in there.
Well, they were saying they have a Capricorn moon. And so this whole theme about true power and being a kind of lifelong theme was really strong with them. And the piece about father, daughter, and patriarchy seemed really strong too.
Yeah. Here's to the truth emerging between fathers and daughters. Here's to the truth emerging from the high male power to the vulnerable, tender female innocence. Here's to truth. Here's to good fathers and great daughters, and the healing of the need to wound and destroy. The dark, false patriarchy is wounded with self-hate that enables it to destroy things that are innocent. And the only response to that is to stop destroying yourself, is to reinforce your primal goodness, your own rightfulness, your beauty, your truth. And when it looks as if it's hard to do that in the world at large today, remember the immortal words of the poet John Keats, who said, "I am certain of nothing but of the holiness of the heart's affections and the truth of imagination. What the imagination perceives as beauty must be true, even if it never before existed." Those words of Keats are a balm and an antidote to the untruths of our time. I am certain of nothing but the holiness of the heart's affections and the truth of imagination. What the imagination perceives as beauty must be true, even if it never before existed. Take that into your soul as a healing balm between fathers and daughters and political leaders and followers. And let's pray to the altar of John Keats's truth and beauty and imagination to restore genuine power in this time of many planets in Capricorn, building towards the great winter solstice conjunction of 2020. This is Soul Level Astrologer Mark Borax with the Cosmic Weather Report live for December 3rd, 2019, The Roots of Power. Thank you all for joining me. Until next time, may your karma turn to grace.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank
Right
you.
on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Have that revolution of one, and we'll see you all next week.
Aloha.
Thank you.